There is a reason Bruges looks nothing like the photos by 11 in the morning, and almost nobody warns you about it before you go. The city you saw online, the one with the empty cobbled lanes and the perfect mirror canals, only really exists at two moments in the day. Get the timing wrong and by late morning you are packed shoulder to shoulder with coach crowds on the Markt, wondering why it looks nothing like the postcards. Get it right and you get the fairy tale almost to yourself. By the end of this video, you will know exactly when to arrive, the one mistake that ruins most day trips here, which of the Belfry, the canals and the museums are worth your limited hours, where to eat proper Flemish food instead of a sugar-piled tourist waffle, and 2 clean ways to plan the whole day depending on whether you are staying the night or not. This is One Day City Guides. If you have got a city coming up, subscribe. We plan one perfect day in a new city every week, and it is the difference between seeing a place and just standing in it. So, where are we? Bruges sits in the northwest corner of Belgium in the Flemish region, about an hour by train from Brussels and close to the North Sea coast. It is small. The whole medieval centre fits inside an old ring of canals, and you can walk from one side to the other in well under half an hour. There is no metro here, no tram, and honestly no reason to touch a bus. This is a walking city, and that is the first thing to get straight in your head. Bruges is also, for most people, a day trip city. Trains pour in from Brussels, from Ghent, from Brussels airport, and even from Amsterdam and Paris, and most of those people come and go inside the same afternoon. That single fact shapes everything about how you should plan your day. Which brings us to the decisions you need to make before you even arrive. There are really only 4. When do you come? Do you day trip or stay the night? Do you try to bolt Ghent onto the same day? And do you climb the Belfry or skip it? Let us take them in order, because getting these 4 right is most of the battle. On arrival, Bruges has 1 train station, and it sits about a 15 to 20 minute walk south of the main square, right beside the Lake of Love and the old Beguinage. That walk-in is your decompression chamber. You leave the modern world of the station behind and step straight into the fairy tale, so do not grab a taxi. On Ghent, let me be blunt, trying to see both Bruges and Ghent in one day is a rookie move. You spend a chunk of your day on trains, you catch the busiest part of each city, and you remember neither. If this is your first visit, give Bruges the whole day. It rewards slowness, and on tours, a short guided canal boat or a walking tour early on can be genuinely worth it here, because a good guide unlocks 600 years of history hiding behind these pretty facades, and there is a lot of it. Now, the mistake. The single biggest mistake people make in Bruges is arriving at the wrong time of day. Bruges empties out in the early morning and again in the evening, and it chokes in the middle. The day tripper coaches from Brussels and Paris start rolling in around 10 to 11 in the morning, and the trains dump their crowds straight onto the Markt. From roughly 11 until 4, the main square, the canal viewpoints and the Belfry queue turn into a slow crush of selfie sticks. Then, as the clock hits 5, the coaches pull out, the day trippers stream back to the station, and the whole place seems to exhale. The lanes go quiet, the light goes gold, and Bruges becomes the city you actually came to see. So the fix is simple and it is powerful. Either arrive on the first train and hit the big sights before 10, or stay the night and own the evening. That one choice, early or late, saves most people their entire day here, and that is exactly the kind of thing we dig out for a new city every week. Let us start your day properly right from the station. Step out, cross the road, and walk into the green park in front of you rather than heading straight up the main road. Within a few minutes, you reach the mini water, the so-called Lake of Love, with its swans gliding across still water and a stone bridge crossing to the old town. Take a moment here early before the tour groups, because it is one of the prettiest first impressions any city gives you. And those swans are not just decoration. They have been a symbol of Bruges since the 15th century, kept on the water as a mark of the city's status, and there is an old legend that ties them to a long ago revolt. Just past the lake, you slip into the Beguinage, Beguinage, a walled courtyard of white painted houses founded back in the 13th century, where religious women once lived a quiet, semi-monastic life. The only sounds in there are birdsong and the crunch of gravel. It is hushed, green, and completely free to wander. This is your gentle way into the medieval city before it wakes up. From the Beguinage, it is a short walk north into the heart of Bruges, and this is where your morning really begins. Aim straight for the two central squares while the city is still calm. The Markt is the big one, ringed by stepped gabled guild houses and dominated by the Belfry. One square over sits the Burg, the older civic heart, home to the ornate town hall, and a small, easy-to-miss chapel that hides one of the strangest relics in Europe. Now, here is something most people walk right past. The Basilica of the Holy Blood, tucked into a corner of the Burg, claims to hold a cloth stained with the blood of Christ, brought back from the Holy Land centuries ago. On certain days you can climb to the upper chapel and see the relic presented up close. Whatever you believe, it is a genuinely medieval moment, and the plain little Romanesque chapel underneath is one of the oldest and most atmospheric spaces in the whole city. Now for the Belfry, because this is your second mistake to dodge. That tower over the Markt is the postcard shot of Bruges, 83 meters tall, with 366 steps spiraling up to the top and 47 carry-on bells hanging inside. The view is superb, but the staircase is narrow and steep. They cap how many people go up at once, and by late morning the queue can eat well over an hour of your day. So if you want to climb it, and it is worth climbing, go first thing right when it opens before the coaches arrive. Do it at noon and you will spend more time in a stairwell than in the city. If you are on the see it all plan, this is your first stop after the squares. If you are staying the night and going slow, skip the queue now and save it. Either way, if the line is already long, do not martyr yourself. There is a cheaper, quieter climb waiting for you later that gives almost the same view, and I will come back to it. With the squares behind you, walk down toward the water, because the canals are the reason Bruges looks the way it does. The most famous viewpoint is Rozenhoedkaai, a bend in the canal where the Belfry rises behind a huddle of old brick houses reflected in the water. It is the single most photographed spot in the city, and honestly, for good reason. A canal boat tour is the classic thing to do here, a half-hour loop through the waterways with a guide pointing out the merchant houses and low bridges. If you take one boat trip on this trip, this is a good one, but the same crowd logic applies. Go early or late, not at midday when the boats back up and the light goes flat. And on your way, look out for the little humpback bridge near the Church of Our Lady, sometimes called the Bridge of Love, one of the most photographed corners in a city full of them. Now here is the piece of history that explains everything you are looking at. 600 years ago, Bruges was not a quiet fairy tale. It was one of the richest, busiest cities in all of Europe. This was the trading capital of the north, where English wool was turned into the finest cloth on the continent, and merchants from Italy, Spain, and the German lands all kept grand houses here. In fact, the very word we use for a stock exchange, the Bourse, comes from Bruges. Traders gathered in a square outside an inn run by a family called Van der Beurs, and that family name became the word for a financial exchange across half of Europe. Then the sea turned on the city. The channel that connected Bruges to the North Sea, its lifeline for trade, slowly silted up with sand until the ships could no longer reach it. The money moved to Antwerp, the city froze, and for centuries Bruges was simply too poor to knock anything down and rebuild. That poverty is why it survived. The medieval streets you are walking were preserved almost by accident because nobody could afford to change them. The city that time forgot is really the city that time could not afford. If you only do one thing today, make it this. Do not just look at Bruges. Get above it or get down into it and feel how small and complete it is. If your legs are up for it, that means the Belfry climb for the view over a sea of red rooftops with barely a modern building in sight. If not, the canal gives you the same city from below. The whole magic of Bruges is grasping that the entire thing is one intact medieval object, not a street of old buildings surrounded by a modern city. That is the call we make for every place we cover. There is usually one experience that unlocks the whole place, and here it is: height or water. By now you have earned lunch, and this is where Bruges gets genuinely delicious. The dish to seek out is Flemish beef stew, known locally as stoofvlees or carbonade, chunks of beef slow cooked in dark Belgian ale until the sauce turns deep and glossy, and it usually arrives with a pile of proper Belgian fries. And let us talk about those fries for a second, because Belgians are deadly serious about them. They are thick cut, fried twice, so they go crisp outside and fluffy in, and you eat them from a paper cone with a little fork, drowned in mayonnaise, not ketchup. The place to get them is a Frites, a dedicated fries stall, and there are good ones around the Markt and the smaller squares. Now, real Belgian chocolate is worth your money too, but buy it from an actual chocolatier somewhere like the Chocolate Line, rather than a souvenir shop with pyramids of pre-boxed pralines in the window. And if the weather is cool, moules frites, a steaming pot of mussels with fries is the classic order. A quick word on the waffle, because this is a small trap. The waffles you see stacked on street stalls, buried under whipped cream, strawberries and chocolate sauce, are the tourist version, a Brussels-style waffle dressed up for a photo. The one Belgians actually eat is the Liege waffle. It is smaller, denser, made from a sweet dough with pearls of sugar baked right in that caramelize on the iron, and it needs absolutely nothing on top. Find a warm, plain Liege waffle from a proper bakery, and you will finally understand what the fuss is about. Around the middle of the day, your route forks, and this is the decision that shapes your whole afternoon. Fork 1 is the culture route, built around Bruges' serious art and one world-famous statue. Fork 2 is the slow route, built around the quieter northern lanes, a windmill or two, and a beer. Honestly, neither is wrong. It comes down to whether you would rather stand in front of one of the great treasures of European art, or simply soak up the medieval atmosphere with a cold local glass in your hand. Let me lay both out so you can choose with your eyes open. Take the culture fork, and your first stop is the Church of Our Lady, whose towering brick spire is one of the tallest of its kind in the world and visible from all across the city. Inside is a quiet miracle, a small white marble sculpture of the Madonna and Child by Michelangelo, bought by a wealthy Bruges merchant family and shipped here in the early 1500s. And here is the part most people do not realize. This is the only sculpture by Michelangelo that left Italy while he was still alive. You are standing in a modest church in a small Belgian town, looking at a work by the man who carved the David, and it has quietly been here for 500 years. From there, it is a 2-minute walk to the Groeninge Museum, home to the Flemish primitives, painters like Jan van Eyck, who worked in Bruges when it was rich and pushed oil paint into a level of detail nobody had seen before. If you have any love of art, this small museum punches far above its size, and it rarely feels crowded even when the streets outside are heaving. Just across the way, the old St. John's Hospital holds a jewel box collection by Hans Memling if you want a second, quieter gallery. Take the slow fork instead, and you walk north, away from the crowds, into the residential lanes most day trippers never reach. Up near the old eastern edge of town stand a couple of surviving windmills on the grassy earth ramparts, a reminder that this was a hard-working place long before it was a pretty one. And here is where you cash in the beer. Bruges' famous city centre brewery has been making beer on the same spot since the 1800s, and its flagship is a golden ale, whose name translates roughly as the Bruges Fool. Take the brewery tour and you climb up onto the rooftop for one of the best views in the city and one of the cheapest, since it costs you the price of a beer. But the detail that makes everyone grin is this. A few years back, to stop tanker trucks rumbling over the fragile old cobbles, the brewery built itself a beer pipeline, an actual pipe, over 3 kilometers long, running deep under the medieval streets, pumping beer from the historic brewery to a modern bottling plant on the edge of town. Part of it was even funded by fans who chipped in money in exchange for beer. So somewhere beneath your feet right now, beer is very possibly flowing through the ground of Bruges. Whichever fork you took, let us talk money and time, because a few of these sites have an expensive version and a free one. The Belfry is the paid, ticketed view with the long climb. The cheaper alternative is that brewery rooftop, or simply the free vantage from the windmill ramparts, which cost you nothing but your legs. The canal boat is the paid way to see the water, charming and worth doing once. The free version is walking the canals yourself, especially the stretch by Rozenhoedkaai and the quieter Groeninge, which lets you linger as long as you like. And the museums, the Groeninge is worth paying for if you love art, but if you do not, the city itself is the exhibit and the walking is free. So spend on the one or two things you will actually remember and let Bruges do the rest for nothing. Right, let us put it all together into 2 clean ways to spend your day. Option A is the see it all route, ideal for a first visit and a day trip. Arrive on an early train, walk in through the Lake of Love and the Beguinage, and go straight to the Belfry the moment it opens, before the crowds land. Come down, cross to the Burg for the Basilica of the Holy Blood, then wander the Markt. Have your stew and fries around midday. In the afternoon, take the Culture Fork, the Church of Our Lady for the Michelangelo, then the Groninge Museum. Finish with a slow canal walk and a boat in the late afternoon as the day trippers thin out. Option B is the slow and deep route, and it is the better plan if you are staying the night. Arrive whenever, but save the big squares for early evening once the coaches have gone. Spend your afternoon on the northern lanes and the windmills, do the brewery tour, sit with a Bruges fool, and drift the quiet canals. Then, as the light turns golden and the crowds vanish, walk the empty Markt and Rozenhoedkaai and see the fairy tale city that the day trippers paid for and never actually got. Which brings me to the evening and one last trap. If you are day tripping, keep one eye on your train. Bruges winds down early, and the last convenient trains back to Brussels and beyond leave earlier than you would expect for a big name destination. Check your return time before you settle into that second beer, because getting stranded here is a real risk and a late taxi is not cheap. And if you are staying, do the exact opposite. Book a dinner table in advance, because the good restaurants fill up and the kitchens close earlier than in a big city. Then head out and walk the floodlit lanes after 9, when Bruges belongs to the handful of people who stayed. That single choice, catching the right train or booking the right table, is the whole difference between a rush day and a perfect one. We have linked our favorite local Bruges tours and experiences in the description below. They are good value, smaller groups, and they handle the logistics, so you just show up and enjoy it. If this saved you a wasted morning fighting the crowds in Bruges, subscribe. We do one of these for a new city every week, and the place you are headed next is very probably already on the channel. Now tell us in the comments how you would spend your one day in Bruges.